Up next, we have Feross from Socket back on the show to discuss a Series C by none other than Thrive Capital. We'll bring in Feross from Socket from the waiting room to the TBPN Ultra Dome.
Get that gong ready.
Welcome to the show. How you doing?
What's up?
Good to see you again.
How's it going, guys? Thanks for having me back on.
I think last time you were on, we'll see you soon. And here you are. Give us the news first. What happened?
Yeah, so Socket announced its $60 million Series C at $1 billion valuation.
Hit it again. Hit it again.
Yeah, led by Thrive Capital.
Congrats.
And it's a big day for us.
Absolutely massive.
Is what you do important right now?
Yeah, you couldn't have really asked for a better, perfect storm. You have just the confluence of, AI, cybersecurity, and all the different attacks we've been seeing. And we kind of built the perfect product for this moment. And it's been something that we've been building towards for, it seems like it's okay. We had the right thing right now. But the reality is, we've been building towards this for 4 years plus.
Yeah.
And so, it's an overnight success that took 4 years, right?
There we go. I love it. What was the key unlock for the new round? Growth, needed the capital for specific expansion, just the broad tailwinds of the industry, people looking forward to more demand. What's changed in the business?
So the business is just inflecting. Every year I feel like, okay, this is great. Certainly we're going to get like a regression to the mean or something, but it just keeps accelerating. So over the last while, we've had 500% plus ARR growth over the last 12-month period, and it's just it keeps going. So I think we're seeing kind of three forces converging all at once here. We have this kind of like perfect storm between AI generating more code than ever before. You got developers and increasingly non-developers too that are pulling in open source dependencies and third-party code at like an unprecedented velocity, and you have more code being written than ever before, both by humans and AI agents. And the kind of maybe counterintuitive thing is it actually brings in a lot of third-party code, and that code is really vetted less than it's ever been before.
Yep.
And that's kind of like the first thing. The other thing is you got the frontier AI models like Mythos that are finding thousands of high severity vulnerabilities across every major operating system and open source library, and so the total volume of vulnerabilities in code is exploding right now, and it's going to keep going as we start to throw these models against this backlog of code that's been out there for a long time and has a lot of vulnerabilities. And then kind of the third piece is that the attackers have really started kind of realizing that they can exploit the software supply chain to get into companies. So they're not really like coming in through finding vulnerabilities, but they're actually kind of realizing if we go into an open source component, that's actually an easy way to get into an organization, and not just one, but usually thousands of organizations that all use that same component. So it's this like perfect storm of all these factors right now.
So walk me through how your business model interacts with the open source community, because when we see things like Mythos finding a bunch of bugs in open source repos, we hope that everyone will just submit bug reports early for the good of the world. But I'm interested in like the economics of patching open source. If there's a really important package out there that maybe doesn't have a Linux foundation behind it, like how at some point, like at the very least, there's inference costs. Who's paying to patch all of the open source software that so many different companies rely on? If you go to a big company, they pay you. They might patch like their dependencies, but how does this all flow together into an actually safer internet?
Yeah, well, I've been in open source for I think over 15 years now, and I maintain a bunch of open source packages and have a real soft spot for the open source community. And so let me tell you, they were suffering under an enormous burden even before the current AI trends have kind of made it even worse. They don't get much support, whether financial or just in terms of the number of people working on this really critical infrastructure is super low for how critical it is. And so we started seeing a lot of AI tools being used to create these slop PRs, these slop issues, and that was already kind of causing a burden. And then now you have the various frontier labs that are finding with their models are finding a lot of vulnerabilities that were always there, but the the community didn't know about. And I will say they're doing a good job of providing a patch along with the bug that they've identified. So they're doing a lot of the work for the maintainer, but it still takes effort to review the PR. And the thing that people don't realize is when you accept a pull request as a maintainer, you're not just it's not this one-time cost. You're actually accepting the burden kind of indefinitely into the future to maintain that code and make sure that that code is secure and is kept up to date with all the other changes. And so I think what we're going to see, and we're already starting to see, is despite the kind of best efforts of the frontier labs, and they are making a good effort, maintainers are going to fail to actually accept these patches. And so we're going to see a lot of libraries that may have a vulnerability in them that literally have effectively code sitting on GitHub that anyone can look at and use to generate an exploit against that vulnerability. And there's not going to be an easy path for companies and for developer teams to go and actually patch their libraries because there's no version they can upgrade to, because the maintainer is just sort of sitting there on that patch and hasn't accepted it. So it's just creating this real risk where there's more vulns than ever before, and there's not really easy paths. And so this is actually something we try to solve. So we built a solution to this called certified patches. And what this is basically kind of a deterministic way to, in kind of one click, make your vulnerabilities in your open source code go away. So we use a whole bunch of AI and kind of produce these patches that make the vuln go away without any work on the part of the developer. There's no kind of burden of upgrading packages. You just sort of in a click, the vuln is gone from your dependencies, and you can kind of keep the rest of your code in your application the same. And so it's really a kind of a quick fix to the problem that we hope is going to be part of the solution. And by the way, we're giving away all the critical the critical patches to the community for free, so we can try to disseminate this widely to as many people as possible.
Are you finding any companies that are completely asleep at the wheel, or is everyone giving this an
who should I hack today?
No, I just want I imagine part of why the business is growing so quickly is this is a hair on fire problem, concern every single day, right? You're seeing these vulnerabilities or issues pop up. And so I would have to imagine that every software company online where the technical leadership there uses the internet, which I would imagine is all software companies, are pretty leaning into this problem. But do you ever I'm curious, even from an outbound sales marketing standpoint, are there people that are this is not that important for us right now, or would a no be we have a solution, it's with someone else?
So we've met one company that has literally no software. They produce toilet paper, and they didn't have
Christopher Nolan of business. No smartphone.
So I think I think that it's become a universal problem. When we started, it was kind of this maybe more niche problem where people said, okay, I got a lot of other problems that are more important than this. And we initially had a really good uptake of the product in the cryptocurrency community because they have a lot of software supply chain risk. And when these hacks happen, it's kind of an irreversible thing for them where they lose all their funds. And then I would say kind of the AI labs were the next to pick it up, and sort of SF tech companies realized that the kind of people that are ahead of the curve. And now it's become, it's I'd say top one or top two concern at nearly every company we talk to. It's a board level concern a lot of the times now, and CISOs and heads of engineering are being asked to figure out what is our solution to make sure the next time one of these things happens, we're protected. And the next time is probably going to be tomorrow. It's become so. It's literally
every day.
Literally our end of quarter was the end of last month, we already were super busy, and then there were 3 major software supply chain attacks that happened that same day. It's wild. It's more than we've ever seen, and it's totally unprecedented.
Was the GitHub issue that I saw a supply chain attack, or was that something else? I saw a couple posts, but I didn't get to dig into it.
So I don't think they've released that information yet.
Okay.
Yeah, there's definitely been some speculation. I mean, the timing right now, every time a company gets popped or their source code leaks, it's the first question that people think of now. And the group, I believe, that claimed responsibility is this Team PCP group that has been responsible for a lot of the attacks. And so, I wouldn't be surprised if that's what we learn, but I don't think, that's something that we know right now, and I wouldn't want to speculate.
Yeah, I wonder if there will be movements to find like the compute infrastructure for Team PCP at some point, or like the hackers, because at a certain point you would imagine that they're
well, they don't. I mean, a lot of this is still social engineering, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't. They don't necessarily need a country of geniuses data center. They can
got
just
a couple dudes with phones. Who knows? Well, congratulations on the progress.
Yeah,
Thank you so much
progress.
for coming on the show.
Thanks for keeping us all safe.
And we'll talk to you soon.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Have a good one.
You.
Goodbye.